Hello everyone and welcome to another Meet NBPD. I'm Chief Joseph Cordeiro and I have with me today an exciting guest, Dr. Michael Sloan. He is our crime analyst. Welcome Dr. Sloan to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you. He is coming up 2 years, right?
That's right.
So coming up on 2 years, we had the great fortune of finding Dr. Sloan to be our crime analyst for the New Bedford Police Department. Dr. Sloan, maybe you can tell our guests at home a little bit about yourself.
My name is Dr. Michael Sloan. I am the crime analyst here in the New Bedford Police Department. I have been here for about 2 years. Prior to that, I grew up in New Zealand, so moved out to the United States in 2014. So I've been here 6 years now in the city of New Bedford for 4 and coming up on 4. It's gone very fast.
Your accent gave it away that
a little bit. It usually does.
I'm tend to see the New Bedford accent is starting to slip in there, so a couple more years, maybe we'll...
When I go home, I don't sound like I'm from New Zealand anymore. So.
Great. Well, Dr. Sloan, maybe tell us a little bit about, how you got here, right? A little bit about your background, your educational background.
So my PhD is in geography from Victoria University in New Zealand. A lot of what we do there with mapping has a direct relevance to crime analysis. All crime has a time and a place. And so I've been able to come in and use those skills and really grow through all the excellent resources we have in the police department to advance the crime analysis that we're doing in the city.
Yeah, it's really exciting, for us and for me in particular because, Dr. Sloan, you're an essential part of our team here, and a lot of folks, hopefully after the show, they'll understand why. Mm-hmm. Because we're trying to become a very efficient police department to maximize our resources mm-hmm. out in the field and try to impact crime, right?
Right.
As that's been going on for many, many years. So let's move on. It's a little bit, and we've evolved in 2 years, and we
Absolutely.
keep evolving. Your job keeps evolving, and the products that you deliver
Absolutely.
to our field services. So maybe talk about what you do to gather the data.
Right. So, I mean, with a police department our size, there's just huge amounts of data coming in. When you're going to 1 to 2 to 300 calls for service a day, that's a lot of information coming into our department that you can't just send all that information out to every single person, otherwise it just becomes an overload of data. So what's really important is being able to get the information to the right people who need it in as concise a way as possible. So you're really filtering through all that data that's coming in and turning it into products that they can use when they're either planning to go out onto the street or getting out into the street. So that means delivering a lot of products on a daily, weekly, bi-weekly process to our commanders, to their supervisors, so they can feed it out to their officers on the street, so they know exactly where crime is happening and how they can best respond to that in a timely manner.
And really, sometimes, a lot of times what we're trying to do is to get ahead of the curve, right?
Absolutely.
Is to identify a crime pattern
Yep.
and try to intersect that with police presence or resources, mm-hmm. or even other technologies we can talk about in a little bit, like cameras and things of that nature.
Yep.
Now, the data that you're sorting out, what kind of data are you looking at? Like, is weather important to you?
Absolutely.
Is day of the week,
Absolutely.
Seasons? What kind of variables are you looking at?
So we can forecast, predict, using 4 variables within a very tight confidence, the number of calls for service we're going to have on a given day. There are fluctuations from it, but just having the temperature, the length of the day, can really make a huge difference in the number of calls we receive. So being able to use that information means we know when we're going into a busy period, when maybe crime is going to lessen off a little bit, so we can focus on other aspects of our policing roles.
Yeah, I remember when we started, when you first came
mm-hmm.
work with us, and this is kind of cool work that you do. I got to tell you, a lot of folks probably watch television, all these police shows, especially more modern police shows where they're really utilizing the crime analyst to help us, like I said, intervene with the crime. And agencies like the FBI have been doing it for a long time. Getting to the point, I remember you talking about weather being so important, and that kind of like threw me for a loop because I wasn't really thinking. I mean, I know in the summer when it's hot,
mm-hmm.
calls usually pick up for us. And when it snows really heavy, things kind of shut down. But I was talking about temperature,
Yep.
like normal temperatures, how that impacts, your analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting to us. Now, when you get all this data together,
Yep.
then what do you do with it?
So we produce daily bulletins for our commanders. Our SRO officers receive a daily bulletin so that they know exactly what's happening to students in their schools. So they can really act as liaisons to the school community, make sure that the school has the right information, the appropriate information to assist that student in whatever support they need for whatever incident or activity they were caught in or involved in.
But it's a little bit more than that. It's not
Yep.
just science.
No.
Right? Science is grabbing the numbers and pushing it all together, how hot, cold, robberies, how many street intersections. But it's more than that, because it's been said now you are also utilizing intelligence from our field services, our detectives.
Absolutely.
Information they're gathering out from the street, and you're infusing that with your data.
Absolutely.
Right? So when you just mentioned the SROs, that kind of took me to the point, like if something happens in a school, like a simple fight, let's say,
Yep.
right? How would that impact your analysis of data? Or we don't use predictive analysis anymore, right?
Right.
Forecasting. Forecasting analysis. How do you utilize that?
So, what's important for us is trying to look at what was happening, where it was happening, and how that may play out over the coming several days. So if there is an incident, how we can sort of look at past incidents to see what we might expect to happen in the coming days. If there's a shots fired incident, what sort of retaliation there may be, where it may be, and how we can make sure that our officers have that information so that they can respond in appropriate measure to the appropriate areas.
So, for example, Dr. Sloan, if there was a simple fight,
Yes.
disagreement between two people that we know
Yep.
that are both members of a gang,
Mm-hmm.
right, then you would use all your analysis, previous history,
Mm-hmm.
current information, weather, days of the week, and then try to forecast if those two gangs are going to conflict, where and when might it happen, and what
Absolutely.
time frames.
Absolutely.
Is that kind of what we're looking at? So what would that look like if you were forecasting, roughly based on that information? What kind of report would you be giving back to the SROs or the field service officers, let's say at one of the stations?
So through the commanders, we'll provide a hotspot analysis for the commanders to know where the crime is, a time of day analysis, so we can sort of look at what the most likely time for retaliation is going to be, and tie in points of interest, that side of things, so that they have that information that they can focus particularly in those areas and those times.
Right, and the challenging thing as a scientist is to see the impact that you've
Right.
had, because when you're forecasting and then we put our resources there and then nothing happens,
Right.
There's no really to quantify that, correct?
Absolutely, and unfortunately, as a data scientist, we don't know the counterfactual. We don't know what would happen if we weren't there, because we were there, so whatever could have happened didn't happen. But what I've seen from some of the officers in the street who have been getting those products is that they really utilize it and like what they're getting, and so that's really there's a lot of the payback for me.
Right, and we're going to show you that in a few minutes, but so I'm going back to when I was a patrolman, 35 years ago, when we used to come in, our data analysis was the officer coming off the previous shift would give us information on what happened on their shift, right?
Right.
I go back to the time I would love to have the product that you're going to show us on the next half to come in and say, look, this is your area, and have these little hot spots right on there.
Right.
With even a narrative sometimes saying this happened yesterday, there was a fight, and based on everything we know, there's a very good chance that this might happen here in your district. In your sector, it would have been great to be able to set up my cruiser in a nearby area and try to intervene. It would have been just great to have that kind of information back then. That's really cool.
Yeah, the crime analyst is really just another tool in the toolbox for the department, for the commanders, and for the officers. A big thing in policing is corroborative evidence, and what we're doing is providing another piece of information that hopefully backs up, reinforces what the officers know, so that they can not just rely on their gut, but they can actually look and point to information that's saying, hey, look, this is where I think we need to be, and this is where the data is saying we need to be.
It's complex work. This
It
is it's like you spend hours
Absolutely.
to do these reports, to really fine tune it, tweak it, and then utilize the non-numerical data, if you will, to come up with a solid forecast for the officers. And you do this every day.
Absolutely. So what's great about this position is I've actually been able to build it over the last 2 years. So we're adding in a lot more automation that we've designed within house, so that we know exactly how our products are working when we roll them out. And over time, they're becoming more and more complex, so that we can do more.
And you use video analysis too, right? How does that work? How do you utilize that into your formula?
So for specific videos like city cameras or
Correct. Or whatever, city residential cameras.
a lot of those are tying back and reinforcing what we're picking up through officers' reports and making sure they know that those resources are available.
Right. And even sometimes you get someone that just got out of jail, for example. They were arrested a couple of weeks ago, now they just got bailed out. You utilize that as well as part of your formula to forecast, correct?
Not to forecast.
No?
No, we're not using individuals to predict crime, but we are feeding that information to the stations so that the commanders know that this person is out and this is a particular MO that they may have.
Right. And that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Especially if they're good out for house breaks, for example, and now you start to see them pop up.
Yep.
And then now you're looking at the previous MO, with the MO being currently utilized in that crime, and see if there is a nexus, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Wow. So we're getting close to halftime here, Doc. So that went real quick.
It did go fast.
A lot of information you got there. So at home, please don't go away. Go grab a coffee and a cookie and come right back, because Dr. Sloan's going to give us some illustrations of what his ComStat report looks like, and even the daily reports that he issues to our police officers on a daily basis. You'll get a front seat view to what the officers and our command staff are getting on a regular basis, thanks to Dr. Michael Sloan. So see you soon. Don't go away.
I feel like her heartbeat is like same speed as mine, and I think we have this like deep connection, this heart connection in her heart, that there's room for me and Mom. When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer. It's a sensory thing. It's a thing with Asperger's.
She's really good with Anya. I've seen adults react to my daughter when she has meltdowns like she's from a different planet. And this little animal just sat next to my child and was just like, it's gonna be cool. She's my superhero.
Good job, kitty cat.
When we adopted Lucky, we discovered all the wonderful things that make her unique.
Lucky's a little bit of a lot of things, but mostly she's pure love.
Don't feel like you, and you feel like you just might lose control one day and lose this never-ending fight. We are here to battle with you and help you rewrite a better tomorrow and a future that's bright.
Hi, my name is Christopher. I'm Emergency Services Manager here at the Crisis Center in New Bedford. If you or a family member is experiencing a mental health crisis or struggling with substance abuse, feel free to call us anytime. If you need us, we are here for you.
Estamos aqui para ti. A gente estamos aqui por você.
Não está ali, por favor.
Merge, I know I'm gonna work. I get a girl, cook up a cup, man. Okay.
We are here.
Hi, I'm Taya Leone, and you're watching New Bedford Cable Network. Good for you.
Welcome back to Meet NBPD. And again, if you missed the first half, I'm here with Dr. Michael Sloan, our crime analyst for the New Bedford Police Department. And we're going to get right to it. Dr. Sloan, we were talking about before the break the reports that you create for our offices. Can you, I think we're going to be able to show them a little bit of that. And I just want to remind everybody, what you're going to see on screen today, these are all mock reports, not real ones. So if you see something around your neighborhood, not real, don't worry. Dr. Sloan?
Right. So we put out a number of reports every day. First and foremost, we put out a juveniles report that goes out 7 o'clock every morning, so the SROs have access to the information they need prior to their shift. After that, we produce a problem properties list report. So that makes sure that the commanders and their problem property sergeants or lieutenants have all the calls to our problem properties on the previous day, so that they know immediately that morning without any hesitation what they need to be acting on for those problem properties, so that they can keep ahead and on top of any problems that are arising with those properties. We also have a daily overdose report that goes to our lead employees, so they can get out and have as much information on overdoses that have happened in the city over the previous 24 hours. And then we also put in a daily package for our commanders that has information on the call volumes that they've been seeing, any shot spotter activations. We put into that report recent arrests, so they can go straight to report numbers to see who was arrested in the area, and also get into a little bit of depth in terms of the incidents that they've seen, street level crime predominantly, that's been happening in the area, so they can best direct their resources into deal with those situations. And then also call volumes, so they can just keep track on the pulse of the department.
Right, so when you're looking at the report, as Dr. Sloan was talking, you can see what that looks like for the officers, and these are really good indicators because the problem properties we look at very carefully, because a lot of times there's certain crimes that are surrounding individual properties. The overdoses are great indicators of what's going on in their neighborhoods, in their sectors, so we can address crime that way as well. And the problem property is really beneficial with the ordinance that was created by Mayor Mitchell and the city councilors several years ago. And I think with Dr. Sloan's help, we've pretty much been able to perfect how we're holding landlords accountable. Dr. Sloan, kind of quickly, because we don't have a lot of time, and hopefully we'll be able to see this on the screen, what a CommStat screen looks like for our command staff that we do every other week. Can you walk us through that a little bit? Again, what you're going to see on your screen is not a real report, so please don't panic if you see your neighborhood in one of those hot spots.
Absolutely. So the first thing we look at is the fending that we've had over the past month period. So we can quickly compared to last year, compared to the previous month, exactly what crime we're seeing in the city. Is robberies up, our larcenies down, what's happening with our aggravated assaults, for example, so that we can really keep track of what is happening if there's deviations from what we've been seeing. Following that, we move into a hotspot analysis that gets sent out to our captains, and they filter it down through their chain of command to the officers, so they can see where crime has been happening, not just over the last month, but we're actually incorporating 4 years previous data for the upcoming period. We're tying into that accident data into our hotspot analysis, so we can show the officers what's been happening where and what we expect to happen in the forthcoming period. And a key driver of that is the recent past is a very good indicator of the near future. So we're looking in that 2-week period to be where we would expect crime to be happening based on what we've been seeing. And then following that, we have a problem property report which lets the officers see what properties have been generating the most calls for service in the city, where the most issues may be around happening, so that they can arising, so they can deal to those. And then we move into the station report side of things, where the station commanders come forward and talk on the different incidents that are happening in their city, broken down by crime type, and also the other work that they're doing in terms of directed patrols or community initiatives.
Right, that's really a mouthful of a Reader's Digest version of our CommStat. I wish we could have you on there with us. But the point of CommStat is to have our commanders all in the same room at the same time, with myself and the deputy chief, and of course the rest of our staff, and we can start to look at what's going on in individual districts and how that impacts the whole city. And more importantly for me is to see what our commanders what kind of strategies and tactics they're putting in place to address these crime issues, whether it's a problem property, quality of life issue, overdoses, as you were just talking about, accidents.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing we've been looking at is intersections have a inordinate number of accidents, and then what time of day, what kind of enforcement we can put there to reduce the amount of accidents. So that's really the idea behind CompStat. And when you look at these screens, and you'll also see that Dr. Sloan does mapping, and he puts these cool hot spots to help really illustrate what's going on not only in the districts, and we have a big picture of the whole city. And then when you overlay that with the overdoses and the burglaries, and then you really get to see what's going on and what's driving what.
Absolutely.
As we know, unfortunately, drugs drives a lot of the crime, period. So that is really good. Maybe another time we can do that. But what I really like to talk, Dr. Sloan, about is crime.
Yep.
What's the crime looking like in the city this year? And how does that compare to previous years? How are we doing?
Right. So, I mean, you can't talk about 2020 without putting a big COVID caveat in the front of it. And as a crime analyst, as COVID was starting, the big question was, how was that going to impact crime in New Bedford? In terms of our numbers for the first 11 months of the year, our numbers look like they are trending down in most categories. The exception is aggravated assault, which has remained relatively constant with last year, and motor vehicle theft, which has gone up 15%. But our simple assaults have come down 16%, our robberies have come down 41%, and our larcenies have come down 26%, with burglaries coming down 22%. So we've seen double-digit decreases in a lot of our categories, which is interesting as a crime analyst, because there's those big drops, and the question really becomes then: is this related to COVID, or is it not related to COVID? So something that I like to do is look back over the trend that we've been seeing over the last 10 years, and if we actually play out the numbers over the last 10 years, all our categories are down in terms of aggravated assault, simple assault, robbery, burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft. They've all come down by double-digit decreases. And when we look at the graph that you will see on the screen behind us, if you take, for example, robbery, it's come down 64% in 10 years' time. So 10 years ago, we had 261 robberies in the January through November period. This year, we've had 94. So that's a big drop in terms of our robberies. Burglary B&Es have come down from over 1,000 to 276. And when we look at the graph, they've really trended in a consistent pattern over that period. So what we're seeing in terms of our numbers isn't just a COVID situation. It seems like it's a part of a trend that we're seeing in the city over multiple years now.
Multiple years, that's wonderful. Dr. Sloan, I know that you don't just limit your information to locally, but nationally, there's been an uptick in violent crime. Right. Across the country,
especially in our larger communities,
in cities of ours and larger, for sure. And we're faring very well comparatively. Right. Knock on wood. I always say that very cautiously. Am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in terms of, I think you've got some more categories you want to talk about.
In terms of crime,
yes,
or in terms of other areas. So I mean, one thing that is important is that COVID changes how we do policing. We have to respond as COVID forces us to. But what's interesting when we look at, say, the number of guns seized over the last year, we've had an increase in the guns that we've taken off the streets. We've had 57 guns seized since January through November, up from 50 last year, which means in a given week a gun's coming off the streets in New Bedford. So that shows that we're still getting out there and getting the work done.
Yeah, I think, I just want to take a moment and really take my hat off to the men and women of the New Bedford Police Department, our entire team, because it's just not the officers out in the street doing the work. It's, part of our team is, Dr. Sloan, we got Sarah, we got, it's our dispatchers, it's our call takers, it's our administrative services. Everybody's really coming together to make this work, at least, since I've been the chief coming up on 5 years. I can't say I'm just simply amazed and grateful for the team that we have here. And we're seeing the impact on the numbers. There's no doubt about it. From the officers on the street to the administrative services being done up at headquarters. And like I said, the call takers taking the call in, get as much information as they can.
Absolutely.
Or the desk officer, as we put up a ton of cameras up. We had a case recently, the desk officer was a shooting. The desk officer got up and got on the camera and says, "Hey, this is the car, find him."
Yep.
And he grabbed the car a week or so ago. So it's everybody really coming together, and I am so impressed and grateful for them. And folks, Dr. Sloan's been a great asset to our team. Crime analysts, they're invaluable. So let's talk about. I think you got fireworks. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So fireworks was something interesting out of COVID that I certainly didn't foresee happening. We had a huge increase in call volumes, as did other big communities. Boston had, I think, an 1,800% increase in fireworks. So as you can see from the graph, our firework calls over the lead up to 4th of July absolutely skyrocketed on previous years. And that really, I think it speaks to our ability to get the resources where they need to be and to get those calls answered. We're looking at over 1,200 fireworks calls in a 2-month period is a big response for us.
Yeah, it was quite time consuming, and I can tell you it was really a pain, and I'm sure it was for everybody out there. And I heard from you, I really did, and we tried to do our best, and we're going to have some strategies in place this year for it, for sure. You have something else you get?
I do. One of the things I know is very important to you, I try and spend as much time on as I can, is really looking at our overdoses and how we can maybe make a positive impact on that. We have the lead team who are doing great work in the community, who I work very closely with, making sure they've got the most up-to-date information on where overdoses are happening, when they're happening, so they can put the resources into the community where it matters. And it looks like we've had a 15% decrease in non-fatal overdoses this year. From January through November compared with last year. So we're seeing a small decrease in that. One of the big concerns was if our fatal overdoses might go up with COVID and isolation and that side of things. And that number looks like it's come down about 30% on last year. So that's another great piece of information and great result as we move through towards the end of 2020.
Absolutely, Dr. Sloan, and you're right. It is very close to my heart, overdoses and the whole heroin addiction that the whole world is suffering from right now, the opioid addiction. So it's not just getting information to police officers they're getting. Dr. Sloan gets that information to our lead team, which is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program that we have, and we've talked about that on this show. We won't do it today because we'll run out of time. But you're not just getting information to police officers, you're getting it out to our recovery coaches. When these hot spots, these patterns start acting up, we're putting recovery coach teams right in those spots, right in that nucleus, so they can try to help people. And I'm proud of that work as well that you're doing, and our team is. At the end of the day, we're trying to save lives.
Right.
We really, truly are, and seeing those kind of numbers, it warms my heart. So your work is very valuable to us, without question, and I thank you, Dr. Sloan. We're running out of time here, and again, I just want to throw my hat out to the men and women of the New Bedford Police Department, our entire staff, sworn and non-sworn. That's what's making a difference in our city. And if you ever doubted that you have the best police department in the country, we took those doubts away today with these numbers, because I can assure you, you can check it out on Google, not all the communities are benefiting from what we're seeing here. So see you in our next NBPD. Take care. Till then, stay safe.